Friends, today we'll talk about Gertrude Morrill. She's the central character in the novel Sons and Lovers and is drawn after Lawrence's mother, Mrs. Lydia Lawrence. The novel very intricately portrays her disillusionment in marriage, then the gradual rejection of her husband, Mr. Morrill, and then taking on of her sons as husband substitutes or say lovers, and the disastrous effect of this unnatural but very strong bond on their emotional life. When Lawrence introduces her to the readers, he details about her physical appearance and also tells about her hollow middle class values, as she comes of an old middle class family. Her father is an engineer, and she herself is a frail, short statured lady with typical middle class values, and to some extent, she is snobbish also. She married Walter Morrill, a miner, but on account of her middle class inheritance, she does not relish the contact of the mining community and considers herself superior to the bottom's women, and this satisfies her middle class vanity that she live in an end house, uh, a house at the end of the row for which she has to pay a slightly higher rent. When her sons grow up, she makes frantic efforts to keep them away from the pit. She would be content with any white collared job for them. She hardly ever realizes the hollowness of her middle class values. Then, another important trait of the character of Gertrude Morrill is her romantic nature. When Mrs. Morrill is 19, she is courted by a young man, John Field, but is later rejected in favor of his landlady, a 40 years old widow, very rich. This is an unbearable humiliation for her, and later, when she is 23, she meets Mr. Morrill at a Christmas party. At that time, he was 27. She instantly gets fascinated by his rich and soft, non intellectual, warm humor, and in particular his use of the dialect. And next Christmas, they are married. Now, when Mrs. Morrill is introduced to us, she is 31 and has been married for about 8 years at the beginning of the novel. These have been years of disillusionment rather than fulfillment. All her romantic dreams of marital bliss are shattered, and due to this, she is filled with extreme bitterness. Lawrence tells us that after her marriage, she's happy just for 3 months. Then she herself is responsible for destroying her marriage. This is another important factor regarding her character, that due to her middle class values, her vanity, her snobbishness, and her lack of understanding towards her husband, Mr. Morrill, how she is responsible for destroying her own marriage. It is made clear in the novel that much of the responsibility for destroying her marriage, Mrs. Morrill is responsible for it. Okay, she is drawn towards Walter Morrill because he is different from her, he is unlike her, and it is clear that two opposites always attracts each other. So she gets attracted towards him, but afterwards she hates him for being unlike her. And not only this, she decides to marry a minor without knowing what it is like to be a minor's wife. She remains far away from the world of reality. And then instead of changing herself according to her new situation or adjusting according to her new situation, she tries to change her husband, and in this process she destroys him completely. So in this way, she is unable to handle her relation with Mr. Morrill and his situation and circumstances. Then another, we can say it's again a mistake that when she come to know the reality of her husband, that he's a poor man and what it is to be a wife of a minor's wife, what it is to be a minor's wife, she's unable to adjust and she dislikes her husband, and gradually she starts hating him, and he also started rejecting him as a husband, and instead takes on her sons as husband substitutes or lovers. And in this way, she wreaks the emotional life of her sons also. So, unable to find any fulfillment in her relations with her husband, she gradually casts him off and turns to her sons. First, the elder one, William, and then Paul for emotional satisfaction. And the two sons are also deeply attached to her. But as the children grow into adulthood, their relationship with their mother assumes an unhealthy complexion, and explicit sexual overtones can be clearly seen in it. There are various scenes in the novel which exhibit this point. When William seeks fulfillment outside, like in dancing or with his girlfriends, Mrs. Morrill cannot tolerate it. She is also jealous of the girls and pronounces her hostility to them in no mistakable terms. William, the poor boy, is torn between passion and his love for his mother. And unable to overcome this conflict, he ultimately dies of pneumonia in London. Mrs. Morrill does realize instinctively that by coming in the way of William's love for his girlfriend, she has made him suffer extreme anguish and ultimately caused his death. But even this realization does not make her cautious and prevent her from taking on Paul. The same story repeats with Paul also. And in this way, she destroys the emotional life of Paul also. Actually, Mrs. Morrill fails to realize the principle of polarity in her relationships with her sons, both Paul and William. She is so domineering, so overpossessive that she does not respect the otherness of other individuals. Her failure to recognize that her husband and her sons possess distinct personalities with individual emotional requirements is the root cause of disharmony and disintegration in the entire family of the Morrills. Now, whatever be the shortcomings of Mrs. Morrill, her end is so pathetic that she is able to win the sympathy of the readers once again. Because she has been portrayed as a devoted mother, she always keeps on laboring hard to keep the family going. And for a long time, she does not let anyone know of the fatal disease that is destroying her. She's suffering from cancer. She falls ill with cancer and desperately fights against death, even though it is evident that she cannot outlive this fatal disease. And when her suffering grows so intense, Paul has to take a decision, and he gives her an overdose of morphia to hasten her end so that she don't have to suffer more. So she dies a very pathetic death, uh, one who keeps on struggling all her life, devoted her life for the family, but somehow things happen in such a way that indirectly she is responsible for the, we can say, for the destruction of the whole family, for the destruction of her, disintegration of her own marriage, for death of William indirectly, we can say. And even Paul, his life is not, he was not happy in his life. So because of a character, the family has to suffer a lot. That's all, student. Now tomorrow we'll discuss the character of Paul Morrill. Thank you.